Good morning. Welcome to class this morning. We got some visiting with us. Good to have you. We're studying from the book of Proverbs in this class this quarter. Anybody need material on some of the things that we're talking about? So we're on lesson number, how about page number? We're on page number 8. Nope, wrong. We're on page number 10, hopefully. Hopefully everybody's ready for 10. Talking about one of the subjects that Solomon talks about a lot in Proverbs, and that is anger. Solomon talks a lot about anger, and so we will be discussing that this morning. Before we begin this morning, Wendell, would you lead us in prayer this morning?
Almighty Heavenly Father, we approach you at this time in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Thank you for the opportunity to assemble with people of like faith. And we pray, Heavenly Father, this will be a good lesson. When we leave here today, may we leave with enthusiasm, encouragement, and a greater zeal and determination to be of service to you. We pray that you would forgive us at this time as we repent of any unforgiven sin. Be with Mickey as he leads the class discussion. Help us, Heavenly Father, always realize that God is in charge. We glorify Him. We look at Him as the creator of heaven and earth, the universe, and He's in control of our lives if we need to. Harmonize our lives with His teaching. This is our prayer in the name of Christ.
Amen. Thank you, Wendell. So as we begin to talk about anger this morning, anybody in here never been angry? Well, my wife said I was the one. 2 weeks ago we did the Folly of Fools, and my wife said I was the perfect teacher for that. So we're on anger, and she says I'm not good with this one. So I'm not the perfect example for anger, and there's a reason for that. My mother sitting here, I've never seen her angry, so I've got a little bit of that DNA. And well, that's good or bad, because she dealt with Dad, and she dealt with me, and she dealt with my brother. I don't know if that's good or bad, but she doesn't have that angry gene, and I didn't get it either. But we'll find out here that anger is not always a bad thing. I mean, most of the time we talk about anger, it is described as something that we need not do. But there are times when anger is okay. And we'll look at that this morning. So hopefully we'll gain something from our class this morning. So the verses quoted is Proverbs 16:32 there, right under where it talks about the human heart. It said, "He who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city." So it talks about the anger and the person that's slow to anger is better than the mighty, better than a warrior, it says in another version. So if you want to be stronger, better than a warrior, then it says Solomon tells us to be slow to anger, and we'll talk about that. There is a term that comes up a lot, and it's not a scriptural term, but what is for someone who let's just call it a righteous anger. There's a righteous anger and an unrighteous anger. Most of the time in Proverbs we're talking about an unrighteous anger, but we'll be looking a little bit at a righteous anger and some evidences of that. Was God ever angry? Give me, somebody got some verses where God was angry?
When Moses and the Egyptians chased them,
Okay.
God was really angry when they were not keeping the faith.
Okay. Wendell says the children of Israel, when they didn't keep the faith, that God got angry with them. How about Proverbs or Psalms 4:4? I think that's a Psalms chapter 4 and verse 4. Talking about angry, and is it okay to be angry? We got this is a Psalm of David, it says there, but it says, be angry and do not sin. Meditate within your heart on your bed and be still. Offer the sacrifices of righteousness and put your trust in the Lord. So there's where David is telling us, be angry. You can be angry, but don't sin. And we know in Ephesians it tells us the same thing, tells us the same thing. Be angry, but sin not. Also, where was the other? Somebody got another verse where God was angry? Say again. Genesis 6:6. Genesis 6:6. What does that say, Ron?
Says, and it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart.
Okay.
I think that's pretty
Right. Lord was sorry that he made man in Genesis 6:6, and it grieved him in his heart. So he certainly, we can see anger there. Psalms 7:11. Psalms 7:11. Somebody got that one?
God is a righteous judge, and a God who shows indignation every day.
So and God shows, it's got a big word there. What every day?
Indignation.
Indignation. There's another, we talk about righteous indignation. You hear that term? My version said in verse 11, God is a just judge and God is angry with the wicked every day. So does God get angry? Every day. Why does he get angry? Sin. Sin. So God gets angry with sin, says he gets angry every day. Mark 3 and verse 5. Not only does God get angry, Jesus gets angry. Mark 3 and verse 5. We don't like to think of Jesus as being angry, but we know a few times that he did get angry. This is one we don't talk about much. Mark 3 and verse 5. I'll just read 1 through 5 so you get the context there. Talking about Jesus, and he entered the synagogue again and a man was there with a withered hand. So they watched him closely whether he would heal him on the Sabbath so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man who had the withered hand, step forward. And he said to them, is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill? But they kept silent. And when he looked around at them with anger, so that's Christ, he's looking around at these Pharisees with anger, being grieved by the hardness of their hearts, he said to the man, stretch out your hand. He stretched out his hand was restored as whole as the other. So there we see Jesus, and the Pharisees were trying to trap him again, as they were many times here. And he looked around at them and he said he was angry. He looked around, he had anger because of the way of the hardness that they had. So certainly we see biblical anger, and and it's always at those who are doing things that are evil or sinful, and so at times we may be justified in our anger a lot, and it's how we handle it, it's how we direct it. Certainly means a lot to that. Okay, so let's look at a few of these verses, and I'll try to get to the questions quicker this morning because the questions are probably better than some of these verses we'll be looking at. So it has the introduction there, and then it's under point number 1, anger. It says it's not always bad. Like all emotions, God built anger into man, so we all have that emotion. and it can motivate us to action. Feeling anger is not wrong. Responding to anger is not wrong. Responding to anger hastily and irresponsibly is wrong. And the verse it uses there is Proverbs 14:29. Somebody want to read that one? Proverbs 14:29.
He who is slow to anger has great understanding, but he who is quick-tempered exalts folly.
Okay, he who is quick-tempered exalts folly. Another version says a hot temper shows great foolishness. So if we don't have control of our temper, if we can't control our temper, then Proverbs says that we're acting like a fool, that we're acting foolishly in 14:29. How about, let's look at another one, Proverbs 19:11. Okay, so if we are slow to anger, that's certainly a positive thing, and His glory is to overlook a transgression. You know, if every little thing ticks us off, we're going to be ticked off a lot. There's lots of things in this life that you just kind of overlook. You can't just get excited about every little thing. Now, there's some things that and I think one of the things that I read throughout this, if it made God angry, it probably should make us angry. So there's sin that should make us angry, that we just don't like it. How we react to that is certainly another thing. But in this version, it says it's glory to overlook a transgression. It's good not to get ticked off at every little thing. We be slow to anger. We'll see that over and over. And a lot of people have difficulty with this. We all have know folks that they just fly off the handle quickly, and normally it doesn't end well. That doesn't go well. Thoughts, comments on those two verses?
Yeah, that slow to anger and overlooking offense. That probably should sound familiar, because that's how God's described probably a dozen times in the Old Testament. Numbers 14 being one of those, the Lord is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but by no means clear the guilty. That is almost the name of God in the Old Testament. Slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love, forgiving iniquity. That description is godly. Okay, so to Michael's point there, God throughout the Old Testament is called slow to anger and willing to forgive, and certainly that should be a quality as Christians that we have as well. Anything else on those first few verses there?
I think today that overlooking an offense can carry the connotation of it just doesn't bother us. And that can seem difficult. Like you hear people say, I can't just overlook that, meaning I can't not notice it. But the overlooking is a choice. We can notice it and then make the choice to overlook it or show grace or show mercy and be forgiving.
Yes.
So it's not so much that we don't notice it, it's that we decide, like you said, we're not going to be irritated by every little thing. We notice it, but we're not going to let it get to us.
Okay, good point. I mean, as human beings and as Christians, we're going to notice things that offend us, and how we handle that is why we're talking about this class. There's ways to deal with anger and things that offend us, and a list. We're not listed here, but I listed some of the things that some of the sins that that are affront to us. Child abuse, that should offend us. Pornography, that should offend us. Homosexuality, abortion for sure, hot topic today. Those things as Christians, they should offend us. But how we react to that and how we handle that is it's very, very important, and we should do it, as Tara said, with grace. But you can't say it's not happening. You can't put your head in the sand and say, forget that. I'm not going to deal with that. It makes me angry. We can't do that. We have to stand up for what's right, but do it in the proper way. Thoughts? So let's look at Proverbs 29:11. Proverbs 29:11.
The fool always loses his temper, the wise man holds it back.
Okay, the fool always loses his temper. So if you want to be a foolish man, if you want to be called a fool, then be hot-tempered and never be able to keep your temper under control. You'll be called a fool. But the wise man quietly holds it back. He's able to control his temper. And certainly, we don't want to be called a fool, so we need to learn to control our temper.
Yeah, English standard there just makes great. Gives full vent to his spirit.
A fool gives
Full vent to his spirit.
full vent to his spirit. So he's got a spirit that likes to be angry, and he likes to show it. He's a rage, I guess. Is that what you got out of that?
Just venting, we say.
Just venting.
Fully vents.
A fool vents, yeah. A fool vents his feelings. We talked about some of these. It says, the man who is slow to anger, not the man lacking anger, is praised in contrast with the quick-tempered man who improperly expresses his anger. And we looked at Mark 3:1-6, where Jesus got angry there. And we know Matthew 21:12-13. Well, let's look just to refresh our memories. Matthew 21:12-13. If I were to ask you, where do we know that Jesus got angry? Most of you would come with this one, in the cleansing of the temple. Temple was a righteous place, a holy place, and Jesus showed up, and what were they doing? They were selling goods. They were probably cheating people over sacrifices that were going to be sold for all these animals, and they had the money changers, and Jesus walks in, and what does he do? Okay, it says in verse 12, Jesus went into the temple of God, drove out those who bought and sold in the temple, overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. And he said to them, it is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves. And one of the other versions talks about he was carrying also a whip. He had a whip at the same time. So Jesus walking in with a whip and turning over tables. Think that's anger?
Maybe in that account in John, 2nd chapter, where it says in verse 15, he made a scourge of cords. So I picture Jesus when I read this, and you look at what was going on in his father's house. And you had the money changers, you had the smell of the animals, you had the smell of sick animals, because it's what they were selling. With how Jesus was making a scourge of cord, making that whip, it was going to take some time for Jesus to do that. I would love to, and we know that Jesus spent all of his time in prayer, constantly. I would love to have known what those prayers were during this amount of time it took him to braid this cord. Because if it had been me, I would braid the cord and used it on someone's back. But we never see Jesus doing that. We see that he drove out the animal. We never see an instance where he struck anyone as far as violence is concerned. But I look at that and look at myself, I would have made a mess of that.
Yeah.
We don't see the Romans coming in having to put down this guy that's hitting people with a whip. We don't see any of that, which I thought was interesting how he controlled that anger and used to control it.
Yeah. So, great point. Jesus controlled his anger and used it appropriately. So sin is evil, and Christ didn't like the temple, which was the most holy place. He didn't like that being desecrated, so he took care of it. He did what he thought should have been done and was done, and he was prepared. Did he get angry? I would think he was angry, but his anger was controlled. He got done what he wanted to get done, got the point across, got the temple cleared out, got the sin taken care of. So we see that Jesus certainly did have some anger there. Thoughts, comments on that one?
Well, one back in Mark, it talks about that he was angry, but he was also grieved.
Okay.
For the loss. And so sometimes, well, I'm angry that righteous anger that Christ had always came with the element of compassion for the lost, or grief for the lost soul, not just anger at what they were doing.
Okay, so we see that a lot. Christ, he's angry, but he has compassion for those, and he's trying to correct a wrong, and he's not venting most of the time at an individual, but just the sin and the problem that is created there. And then finally, Ephesians 4:26 and 27. Talking about this form of anger. Ephesians 4:26 and 27.
Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your wrath, nor give place to the devil.
Okay? Be angry. Who's speaking here? Holy Spirit speaking. Okay. Be angry, but sin not, or do not sin. Do not let the sun go down in your wrath, nor give place to the devil. So if you're angry and you're handling it improperly, then I think that verse certainly says that you're giving a place in your heart to the devil and to the control of the devil. But it doesn't say not to be angry. It says be angry, but sin not. So that tells us that we can be angry at times, but we don't want to let that lead us into doing something that is sinful. And what about do not let the sun go down in your wrath? Give it up at the end of the day. If it's at all possible, don't go to bed at night with this anger in your heart. Get it fixed. Try to get it fixed in some way. Pray to God to help you with that, but don't let it carry for days and days and days, because that's certainly not going to do you any good. But it doesn't say we can't be angry at times, and but just how we handle that anger is a big part of this.
One of the lessons said that God uses anger to motivate us to action. I think a lot of times if we don't feel anger about certain issues like abortion or other things like that, we might ought to question our walk with Christ.
Okay.
Because God uses that anger to motivate us to act against sin, just like Christ did in the temple.
Okay.
He didn't just let it go. He actually moved him to action to display his anger.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes if Christ was sin-free, so I think we are also obligated to maybe display our anger every once in a while and make sure that people know that sin angers us.
Okay.
If it doesn't anger us, maybe there's something wrong with us.
Okay. If you didn't hear that, his point, which was a good one, God and Christ were angered by sin, and it led them to some form of action. If we see sin and it angers us, but we just sit on the sidelines and do nothing about it, say nothing about it, show that we're angered by that in some way, then are we really representing Christianity like it should be represented? I think that's certainly a good point. We can't just ignore sin. You can never ignore sin. You gotta let people, especially if you have the opportunity, let people in the right way say, that is not right. I'm angered by that, and this is what God says about that sin. So I think that's a good point, Gerald. Thank you for that.
Just to add to his point, the idea of love and anger, they feed off of each other. If we love God, love the soul, sin's going to anger us because we can't tolerate it. We should never tolerate sin. James chapter 5, verse 20, the goal is let him know he which converts the sinner from the error of his way should save the soul from death and hide all through sins. That's the result of intolerance, and it drives us to action.
Yeah. Good points. Thank you. So move on to point B, reactions to anger. It says these characteristics refer more to one's control or lack of control rather than the inborn character traits of passion or passivity. So we're born with this passion. It's an emotion. We've got it, and how we deal with it is it, do we have it under control or do we not have it under control? Is what the writer here is wanting to get across. And then he points out some verses about being quick-tempered, and we've already looked at those, but Proverbs 25:28 is a person without self-control. One version said is like a city with the broken down walls. Talking about the fool venting his anger. Let's look at Proverbs 12:16. Proverbs 12:16.
Fool's wrath is known at once, but a prudent man covers shame.
Okay. A fool's wrath is known at once. He doesn't hide it. He spits it out there. The NLT version said, fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to the others. In 16, I'm sorry. A fool is quick-tempered, but a wise person stays calm when insulted. Is it easy to stay calm when you're insulted? No.
It may depend on your pride. That would be the previous lesson.
Okay, we've talked about pride. If you're a proud person, then you probably would get insulted easily. But if we're the kind of person that we should be, then we're going to be a wise person, and we're going to be able to control our temper when we are insulted. When somebody says something that hurts us, do we jump right back at them? Does that do any good? Do you ever win a fight doing that? Might make yourself feel better for a few minutes, but afterwards you'll say, that was a bad idea. I should not have done that. That was not something that was representative of a Christian. But, yes. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say, anger is like a revved up engine. Just really are stirred up. And when you have that engine revved up, you can use that energy. You can sweep a lot of floors when you're revved up.
Okay.
While you're doing that, you can be planning how you're actually going to use that to actually do what you need to do to either prevent it from happening again, prevent yourself from being in that scenario, or to change things for the better. So
Okay.
you have like a short-term and a long-term reaction to
Okay.
whatever stimulated that.
Good point. So if Kyle's mother gets angry, she's going to sweep the floor for a long time until she thinks about a way to handle that anger, which is great. I mean, you haven't jumped right in and got back in somebody's face about it or whatever that situation is. You've taken some time. Your heart's beating fast. You're revved up, so you do something positive until you have the occasion to get that situation corrected in some way. Good point. Thank you.
Also, that anger says a lot about whether it's righteous anger or not righteous anger. If you get angry because somebody insults you, then that's your pride.
Okay.
If you get angry because somebody insults God or sin, that would be considered righteous anger.
Okay, and I think that's the point of this. Two kinds of anger: righteous anger and self-righteous anger. If it's personal towards me, then I gotta let it go. I gotta be able to handle that. But if it's toward God and it's sin that's manifest there, then my anger is justified in that. If it makes God angry, then it should make me angry. Very good. So part B there under B says one who internalizes his anger. That's not good either. Just to clam up. Says this man is likely to clam up, and at times that's not good for you internally. That you need to be able to get it out in a way, but do it in the proper way. It says it hurts himself, and Proverbs 18:14 is the verse, and it says he makes himself sick at times, miserable, self-pity, whether he even realizes it or not. Somebody want to read Proverbs 18:14 for me?
The spirit of a man can endure his sickness, but a broken spirit who can bear?
Okay, it says a broken spirit, you can't bear it. It's very difficult. It's as it says, it makes you feel bad, makes you miserable. So those people that take those and they internalize those things and they're never able to deal with them, that in time it breaks their spirit, and it's certainly not a positive thing. Also, it turns you against others. It causes you to be bitter, resentful, unforgiving, and goes back to Ephesians 4:26 and 27 that we've already looked at. So quick-tempered person's not a good person. Venting is not good. Holding it all in and never dealing with it is not good. But being slow to wrath is good. The man has his hottest passion under control. He controls his anger. How does he do it? And it uses Proverbs 14:29. Proverbs 14:29. Somebody want to read that one for me?
Whoever is slow to anger has great understanding, but he who has a hasty temper exalts folly.
Okay. This NLT version, people with understanding control their anger. A hot temper shows great foolishness. So over and over and over again. If you want to be known as a fool, just vent and don't have any understanding. It only brings folly and foolishness. Okay, moving down to part 2, handling anger properly. It says, in ourselves we're able to control. How are we able to control anger and its destructive effects within ourselves? And Proverbs 19:19. Okay, a man of, let me look that one up on this version. Proverbs, what was it, 19:19? This version says, hot-tempered people must pay the penalty. If you rescue them once, you'll have to do it again. Meaning that this person can't control themselves. You're going to help them out. You may get them out of a situation, but until they get that temper under control, you're going to be dealing with that again and again and again. And you see that often with people that have no control over their temper at all. And then one of my favorite verses in Proverbs, about guarding your mouth, and we've talked about this one already, and I'm sure we'll see it several other times, but Proverbs 17:27 and 28. Proverbs 17:27, 28. The NLT version says, a truly wise person uses few words. A person with understanding is even-tempered. Even fools are thought wise when they keep silent. With their mouths shut, they seem intelligent. I think Solomon kind of nailed it there. A truly wise person uses few words, and a person with understanding is even-tempered. And but if you're not that way, but if you can keep quiet, then people are going to maybe even think you're wise, even though you're probably not. So I think that's a great verse. Okay, let's look at some of these questions before we run out of time, because I did that last time and it wasn't good. Question number 1, and we've kind of looked at these, but it's good to look at them again. Is anger ever a commanded response? Is anger ever a commanded response? And I don't know about commanded. Is ever an okay response? Yes, and we've talked about that. God is angry with the wicked every day. I mean, so we're going to see wickedness in the world, and it should make us angry at times and lead us to action, as Gerald said. Number 2, should a man's emotions be his master or his servant? It says, how can you allow them to be your master? How can you allow your emotions to be your master?
Always having that knee-jerk reaction. Just do what you feel.
Okay. Always knee-jerk, hop out there and say the first thing you think of, or do the first thing you can think of without thinking it through. Just the opposite of it being our servant. And if it's our servant, what do? Control it. Keep it under control. If we're able to control our anger, then it won't be our master. We can learn serve even if we are angry. Can you turn off the emotion? Part 3. Does the solution to the sinful abuse of anger lie in attempting to turn off this emotion? Must it be turned off or controlled?
God has emotion, and we're in His image. He gave us all the emotions for a purpose. And so I don't think the key is to cut it off or shut it down or force it, bury it somehow. But if we take the time to acknowledge what we're feeling within ourselves, like Jenny was saying, angry cleaning's a thing. I clean when I'm angry too, and use that as a chance to think through my feelings. What am I feeling? How am I feeling? And then when we acknowledge them, rather than trying to use another emotion to shove them below the surface, we can take that time to decide, how do I want to respond? I'm feeling angry. This is what happened. Is it righteous anger or not? And how do I want to respond to this so that it doesn't sin?
Okay, good, very good points there. And I didn't know angry cleaning was a thing. I'm glad you all shared that with me.
It is useful. I just don't like to clean, so this is very good.
So I did not know that angry cleaning was a thing. It's not one of my things, but we're all not equal, as we've talked about. So it's good to know. I'm learning things. But angry cleaning, and if that's a righteous, it leads to something that gets us closer to God, then I'm all in. I'm all for that. Question number 4: how can anger actually be constructive? Well, we can clean, and how can it be destructive? Give me another way that anger can be constructive.
Actually, to confront someone,
Okay.
love and mercy over sin, and fix the problem.
Okay. To confront someone with mercy, grace, state out the facts. Let's talk about this and work out the problem. If there's an issue there, let's not have a confrontation. Let's just work it out peacefully. And Romans 12:18, as much as possible, live peaceably with all men. I think that's our goal. That should be our goal. I think that's, if we can do it constructively, then it can certainly be a good thing. And to do it destructively, flying off the handle, attacking someone else for our own selfish reasons, not that it's especially if it's not a godly issue, then we know that is wrong, and we should not be doing that.
We even just add to that destructive, even if we don't fly off the handle, as mentioned earlier, we just hold it all in. That's hurt yourself.
Okay.
You gotta find a way to deal with it. You gotta pray about it, find somebody, a confidant to talk about it.
Yeah, good point. Find somebody to discuss that with. Pray to God for that problem that you've got, but don't fly off the handle. But try not to internalize it to where it affects us. Very good.
I might just add to that. If it's not making me better or making somebody else better, it's not constructive.
Okay.
It's kind of pretty simple. So whatever it is, if it's the only way it could truly be constructive. I'm all out of clean house too. The only way it can truly be constructive is just make it better.
Yeah. So if we're dealing with anger in the proper way, then we're handling that situation, and it's making someone else better.
Another problem with internalizing the anger and not expressing it is a lot of times it comes out and you end up hurting the people closest to you because you don't address the problem with the one that made you.
Cool. Yeah.
You hold it inside and you end up hurting those around.
Yeah. So we got a problem at work, and we don't deal with it. Then we come home, and then our attitude's not good, and we affect our family maybe because our attitude's in not the way it should be, because we didn't deal with a situation that should have been dealt with, and that certainly can happen. We've seen that happen. Number 6, let's look at that one. Where should anger be directed? And how should it be directed? I guess is better. Thoughts on that one? At sin. redirect the anger. If there is an injustice or something we see done that causes anger in us, then take some kind of action, do something about it. Again, over and over again, if it's something that would make God angry, then it should affect us in some way. If it doesn't affect us, then we may need to search the scriptures a little more and find out why it doesn't. What does vented anger produce? More problems. Fist fights at Little League ball games. Vented anger produces all kinds of strife, contention, more anger. It doesn't correct any wrong.
James 1:20, anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God.
James 1:20, Michael said, the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. So if you want to be a righteous person, you want to please God, then learn to control your anger, and God will be pleased with that. Some people have been known to break golf clubs. That's not good either, Ron. It's expensive. Or break fishing rods, whatever.
If you're an angry person, you're prone to vent, off the handle. It produces fear in other people of you, and so what ends up happening is those people will seek to keep peace with you, to make you happy versus the fear of the Lord.
Okay. So, our goal here is to please God. And if we're not using, if we use, as Tara said, if we're fearful of somebody and we try to please them instead of pleasing God, then that's not a positive thing either. Our goal is to please God and do those things that are right. Number 8, is anything constructive ever said when we're angry? And there's several verses it lists there. Is anything constructive ever said when we're, I guess, an unrighteous anger? Is anything ever said properly there? Those verses talk about us being fools. If we're spouting off and we're attacking someone over some personal thing, then it's just going to stir up the strife, and it's not going to help things. And one of the verses says there's more hope for a fool than a person who acts that way. And a fool doesn't have much hope. So to be an angry person for no reason there's more hope for a fool. And then number 9, kind of the same thing. Can anger ever be appeased by going head to head against someone else? Proverbs 15:18. Proverbs 15:18 says, a hot-tempered person starts fight, a cool-tempered person stops them. I like that. Hot-tempered person starts fights, a cool-tempered person stops them. So, I hope we've learned a few things about anger this morning. Thank you a lot for your comments. We've got a lot of things we're learning here from Proverbs. Our Wednesday night we'll be talking about the broken spirit. So that should be interesting, a broken spirit. Again, thanks to all, and we look forward to Wednesday night.